You're a good Warhammer player if you focus on capitalizing on your opponent's mistakes, but you're not great because you're still waiting on your opponent to make mistakes and you're not creating those mistakes. So, good players win by punishing mistakes, but great players win by putting their opponent in positions where mistakes are inevitable. This is what this video is about. Now, because this concept is where most intermediate players tend to get a little bit stuck. You start to understand the game and you know your army, but you're still reacting to what your opponent does instead of controlling what they're allowed to do. Now, in Warhammer, you don't control your opponent, but you absolutely control the environment that they have to make decisions in. You get to control the space, you control movement, you control threat ranges. And when you use these things, these options available to you, and you use them correctly, now you get to create board states where every single option your opponent has is a bad option. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use positioning and movement, the things you have complete control over. Trust me, there's not many things you have complete control over, to create decision pressure. And we're going to be forcing our opponents into mistakes before the dice are even freaking rolled. So stick with me, baby. This is going to be a roller coaster ride, and I'm excited to hop on it with you. Here's the deal. We want to make sure that we create forced errors, or this decision pressure concept as I've presented it to you. We want to make sure that every single decision that our opponents have made is a problem. So a very, very simplistic way for me to demonstrate this concept to you is through the concept of an Overwatch. So if you look at the picture I have presented to you here, I've got a Land Raider Redeemer, 2d6 plus 6, freaking strength 6, AP2, damage 2, auto hitting flamer shots. And I have a unit of knobs led by a war boss. Now, a great example of a forced error is because I have positioned my Land Raider in this position, my opponent is kind of screwed. They're in a position where if they move the knobs, they're going to get overwatched. If they try to move backwards into cover, they're going to get overwatched and killed. If they try to move forwards, they're going to get killed. If they try to charge me, I'm going to overwatch and they're going to get killed. If they stay still and do nothing, which, by the way, is absolutely a decision, that's totally a choice. Doing nothing is a choice. Then they get overwatched and they die. So this is a very simplistic example of ways that we can get our opponents into positions where they are darned if they do or darned if they don't, for example. So what this video is going to do is I'm going to start with this simple example, and I'm going to build to much more complex scenarios and situations where that you can absolutely engineer to force your opponent into really, really bad places. So a good, succinct way to define this is a forced error is when your opponent makes a mistake because every single available option is bad. They don't have any good choices to make. There is no correct choice anymore. All right, so let's move on. So when we are trying to engineer said scenarios, what are the tools that are available to us to force these positions into our opponent? Well, you don't have that many tools in your arsenal that you can guarantee, that you can rely on. And when we are trying to plan damned if you do, damned if you don't scenarios, it's really, really critical that we know that what we're trying to accomplish will be accomplished. So in Warhammer, you don't know that you're going to make a 3-inch charge. You don't know that if you're hitting on 2s, you're going to hit your opponent. You can always roll snake eyes. So what we like to rely on in Happy Crumpin' is that we like to rely on things that we can actually guarantee. And the only things that we can guarantee in 40K is your movement, your positioning, your threat range, and your OC. That's freaking it. There's no dice I can guarantee other than a dice roll of a 1. So by movement, what I mean is whatever your move characteristic is, I know I can go that many inches forward plus 1 because I'm guaranteed to roll a 1 on an advance roll. I know that will happen. So I can use my movement to define certain things on the battlefield that my opponent has to deal with, and I don't have to predict whether or not I can accomplish that. My positioning. If I can have my models in a place, that determines some factors that are just fundamentally true on the board state that dice cannot influence. For example, if I have models screening out because they're standing in a certain position, I know without a shadow of a doubt that my opponent will not be able to come in from reserves closer to 9 inches unless they have an ability that allows them to do such, but that will be accounted for. Threat range. I know that when I have Dante standing in a certain position, Dante in 6 Sanguinary Guard, I know that my average move for this unit is going to be 16 inches, and then I will be at +1 to charge. So if my opponent is standing within, say, 23, 24 inches, my opponent has to be very worried about getting charged by Dante's unit. And then the last thing that we know is we know our OC. If my opponent has 5 OC on an objective and I also have 5 OC on the objective, no one controls the objective. It's that simple. These are the things, these are the tools that I can use to force my opponent to make really, really bad mistakes. So here's a great example on this picture here. And I'm going to go to TTS and demonstrate a lot more of these for you guys. When I put my Gretchen in this position, the Land Raider Redeemer cannot move in either direction. So the first picture has 2 big red arrows shown on it. So Land Raider gets to move in 2 different areas. However, when I put Gretchen standing on the right picture, now that position is no longer available to the Land Raider to move. This seems basic, and it is basic, but this builds into much more complex and bigger deals. So now what's happening is the Land Raider is forced to make only one of 2 choices. He stays put, or I guess 3 choices. He stays put, he charges into the Gretchen, or he goes the other direction. Those are the only choices he has. Now, it doesn't really matter if there's units that are behind the Gretchen and behind cover that the Land Raider could shoot, because he can't get to them because he can't move through them. We're assuming line of sight blocking stuff, right? This is what we want to engineer. This is the simple form. Let's take it up a freaking notch. So what can we do? And then I'm going to switch over to the TTS screen to show you some of this stuff. First thing we can do is we can limit space. And this is controlling where your opponent can move. We can layer threats. So for example, you can do X, but then I get to take Y. What this means is if I have a unit that my opponent can destroy, sure, you can destroy it, but if you do that, then I'm going to be in position to destroy the thing that you destroyed me with. You can remove safe options. If you hang back and don't dedicate any units and don't expose anything, no problem. I'm just going to score max primary and then I'm going to win. And you can force commitment, because once your opponent realizes that there is no safe option, that they can't just hang back, now you're forcing your opponent's commitment. They're having to pray that they get great dice, and they're having to pray that you get bad dice. That's what we freaking want. So let me go to the TTS screen, and I'm going to demonstrate some of these fairly complicated scenarios, but you're going to be able to extrapolate and make it your own, and you're going to be able to generate quite a bit from this video here. So let's go this. So I'm going to show you a couple different scenarios that I've set up here. First scenario is one that I spoke about earlier. Dante with his 6 Sanguinary Guard playing Liberator Assault Group. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if I want to, I can advance and charge this unit and they will move 14 inches. I know this for a fact because Dante gives his unit +1 to advance. I also know that if I charge, he gives them +1 to charge. So at minimum, 1, 2, 3. At minimum, if my opponent is within 17 inches of this unit, they will be charged. I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. I don't need to know any other information. That just will happen. So from this position right here, I will be able to charge this unit of knobs. Now, I can, say that, hey, my total threat range is generally a 16. So if I roll a 3-inch on my advance, I'm +1 to advance. That means I move 16 inches. And then average dice roll is 7. So let's call it an 8 on the charge. So I know that my average charge is going to be 24 inches. So my average threat range is going to be 24 inches. And then my maximum threat range is going to be 19 plus 13. What does that be? Oh, geez. That'd be a 32. Then my maximum would be a 32 inch threat range. And that's assuming I rolled everything maximum. So this would be maximum threat range. This would be average threat range. This would be guaranteed threat range, the way I did bubbles. So this is me controlling space. I'm saying that if you want to touch this bubble, you are accepting that I will kill your thing that you touch this bubble with. That is me letting my opponent know that if you want to stage your extremely powerful and extremely relevant unit that's super important for your army, let's say like a Gazgul Mech or Traka here, I could probably put some down there to help you visualize with 20 boys. If you want to stage them in this position, I am letting you know that this is my guaranteed threat range. All I need to do is roll a 2 inches on between 2 dice, and then I'm definitely going to be getting into this squad. So I'm guaranteeing you where you're allowed to stand. This is controlling space. All right, let me give you another example here. Okay, we want to force safe position. We want to remove the opportunity to do safe things. So if I have my Dark Angels, and this is the way my Dark Angel army works. I'm just giving you this example so you can kind of understand. This Dark Angel unit is forcing commitment from my opponents. Because I have them with the Ancient, they get +1 to their OC. And the way that they stand on this objective, you can see the maximum that these Gretchen can stand while not being within engagement range is that at best I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, I can only get 4 at max. This guy can't move up because then he would be in engagement range. That's 8 OC. This squad is 12 OC, which means he cannot out OC me on this objective. He would literally have to either charge me, or he would have to put more of models on this side of me. And in this Dark Angel attachment, the Wrath of the Rock, I can charge him in his charge phase. So what this unit of Deathwing Knights does here is it removes the option of my opponent to play passively. Because they don't do anything about this, there's no way they can just out OC passively. They literally have to engage with me, or they are guaranteeing that I will score primary on this objective. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the battlefield, I can have this unit of Deathwing Knights all touching set objective. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This gives me 5 OC. And since I have the stratagem Leonine Aggression, what I can do is I can guarantee that my opponent cannot touch this objective with enough bodies to tie my OC. So right here, the best I could possibly do without touching the 6-inch bubble of 6 inch being within 6 inches and allowing them to charge is I can get, it looks like 3 knobs on the objective, which means I'm going to control this objective. Because if you can't get enough OC on here without being within my 6-inch range, and if you get within the 6-inch range, boom, suddenly I can charge you in your turn. That would mean that I get to fight before you get to fight, and that's big problems. So this army is removing options from you. I'm telling you, hey, your options are to try to charge Deathwing Knights with infantry models that have damage 2, which cuts your damage in half, and I'm also -1 to wound, which also cuts your damage by like a third, and I also have a 2-up arm 7. I'm going to spend Armor of Contempt. I'm saying you have to do something really bad for you if you want to have a hope of denying this primary. Not to mention, I can also always Rapid Ingress the Lion and then Heroic Intervene, fight first, and kill your entire squad before you even get to swing. So I am telling you, you have no way to deny me this primary without charging with something that you really don't want to charge into this Deathwing Knight squad. And you have no way to deny me this primary without charging with something that you really don't want to charge me here. Now, some armies might have shooting options. I can have a Rogue Adorn, for example, that might want to come up here and shoot these Deathwing Knights. And of course, he would do it from outside of 6 inches, because otherwise I would charge him. This might be a reasonable option to try to shoot. But because of the way that I've controlled the movement of the board, I also have a Gladiator Lancer right back here. And that means if you're choosing to move your Rogue Adorn up here to shoot this squad of Deathwing Knights, then you're choosing to get shot by a Gladiator Lancer who's got an advantage when he gets to shoot you first. Now, you get to shoot the Deathwing Knights first, but then the Gladiator Lancer gets big shots. And the Deathwing Knights are durable enough where they really, really shouldn't get eliminated by the Rogue Adorn. And even if they are fully eliminated by the Rogue Adorn, my opponent has now sacrificed their unit of their Rogue Adorn, because I get to shoot the Gladiator Lancer and charge with these guys. Or, once again, Rapid Ingress of the Lion, send the Lion out to go kill, right? So, what I've done here is I've created a damned if you do, a damned if you don't scenario. I don't care if I'm playing against Orcs. I do not care if I'm playing against Imperial Guard. If you try to touch this objective, let's say you try to out OC me, I'm going to end up charging you in your turn, and I'll kill you in your turn. If you try to charge and kill me, one, you're going to have to push through the worst unit in the game to actually charge in melee. And you're also probably going to have to push through a Rapid Ingressing and Heroicing Lionel Johnson, who will kill you before you get to swing anyway. This is what I'm talking about. You want to put your opponents in no-win scenarios. In this scenario right here, the only way the Orc player scores points is if they roll incredibly well and I roll incredibly poorly. And they're going to basically effectively be forced to try to hold the center. And the second they try to hold the center, I just get to collapse my entire army on them, and that's a really, really, really terrible choice for them. So what you do is you engineer board states that allow for 0 good choices for your opponent. This is what I want you to try to mimic with your other armies. Now, you don't have the same abilities on other armies as I do, say, on this Dark Angel list, but you absolutely have unique abilities available to you. Orcs have disposable chaff. Orcs have a 40-point unit that's got 21 OC that can just go out OC the crap out of tons of things. Every army has things that they can do that other armies can't do. Your goal, your mission, should you choose to accept it, which I know you do because you love Warhammer, is to figure out what your army can do that will force your opponent to make nothing but bad choices. On this board state right here, the Orc player has 0 good choices. Force them to make bad choices. Now, for those of you who are saying, oh yeah, but what if they just put, say, like a high OC thing on there that the Deathwing Knights can't kill, like a battle wagon? Well, remember, I can still charge you in your turn, and then in my battle round, because I've got another strat with this army, with this unit, is I can also increase my OC, which means then I will still control the objective. And then I'm likely just to drop back here and force you to do it all over again, right? If you want to take both, cool, no problem. Storm one of them, but then I score the other one. No matter what, it's a good thing for the Dark Angels. It's a bad thing for the workshop. This is what I want you to do. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint. I'm going to wrap this video's lesson up. So pardon me for 2 seconds. I want to click on this button. And we are back. So we spoke about limiting space. We spoke about layering threats. That Rogue Dorn wants to come out and shoot my Deathwing Knights, no problem, but then my Lancer gets to come out and shoot it. You want to remove safe options. If you just hang back and don't interact with me, I'm going to max primary and win. And we're forcing commitment. You have no choice but to come towards me, because otherwise I just max primary and win. A common mistake is this one. Players give their opponents good options. Do not do this. Do not give your opponents good options. Effectively, anytime your opponent makes a good move and screws you on it, it's because you gave them the option for it. You either left something exposed, you didn't have enough OC on an objective because you didn't think your opponent could reach it, you didn't screen an opponent's rapid ingress. These are always on you. So what we want to do is we want to take radical self-ownership of our ability to control the way the battlefield is unraveling so that we can maximize our results on the tabletop and in life. So there we go, guys. The takeaway from this video. Stop winning because your opponent made a mistake, although I want you to win when your opponent makes a mistake. But I really want you to start winning because your opponent just straight up couldn't win because you put them in a no-win scenario. Guys, if you like this content, like and subscribe, share with all your friends. That is what builds the channel, and I really, really appreciate all of your love and your attention. Until next time, crump on. Bye-bye.